Orbiting 250 miles above, the space station provides us with the ultimate view of planet Earth. From this perspective, we ask our guests to engage with 6 questions that orbit around wonder and stories of hopefulness. For the next few minutes, this is our Wonderspace.
Welcome to the 108th episode of the Wonderspace podcast, which is an expression of a family trust called Panaper. My name is Steve Cole, and since September 2020, I have asked the same 6 questions to over 100 people from around the world. People such as Britta Fernandez-Schmidt. She spoke in episode 67 about Women for Women International, who since 1997 have helped over 500,000 women survivors of war rebuild their lives. We are thrilled once again to be drawing from the wonder of Ask Nature, who look to nature for inspiration to solve design problems in a regenerative way. Here is another moment to help us re-wonder.
The tomato on your counter, the lettuce in your fridge, the produce spilling out of buckets and shelves in kitchens and markets around the world is alive. When harvested, fruits and vegetables lose contact and communication with the plants on which they grew, but they don't die. They can live for days, weeks, or even longer, but in some ways, that's just not long enough. Between 40 and 60% of all the produce that we grow spoils before we can eat it. Whole plants have many built-in defense mechanisms, producing chemical cues that trigger any number of responses. Some reduce the production of enzymes that decompose cell walls, slowing down the ripening process. Others activate a natural immune system response that resists attacks by microbes. A harvested fruit or vegetable loses access to all that assistance. Now scientists are learning to work with them, to speak their language through the use of natural plant extracts and help them to take better care of themselves. With 1 billion people around the world facing hunger every day, the ability to keep produce fresher longer could be revolutionary.
This week on Wonderspace, we orbit with Emma Pears. Emma is an innovation strategist and leadership coach with her business Solomon Hunt. She is also a musical director, songwriter, and the author of the book What Does It Matter?, which was released in the States a few weeks back, but is released today, Friday the 28th of April, in the UK. With this expansive overview of Earth, I start by asking Emma, if we could do a fly past over any part of the world that is significant to you, which place, city or country would it be and why?
There are many around the world, but one that I've landed on would be Cambridge as a city. And the reason for that is it's really the place where I felt independent for the first time. I grew up in a very large family of 5 sisters, and we were very much a tribe moving around our village and our little world together. We'd enter in places together, and my father, I'd remember, would come and stand at a door and say, "Hunt, girls!" And that would be us, would be off, and we'd be this kind of collective group of people through my whole childhood. And I remember when I left for Cambridge, finding that individualism both scary and also really freeing as well. I was like, this is who I am. And I suddenly had to make decisions about what I liked, where I hadn't had to do that before. I had to find portions of food that would do for one person as opposed to 7 plus the other 7 that my parents would always have over as guests. So it was a really interesting transition for me. And so that city holds many, many memories for me. It's a beautiful city, beautiful architecture, incredible history, stunning River Cam through it. And I think it was just a city of self-discovery. I think I came home from there a different person than I went. Or perhaps maybe the same person, but having discovered more about myself that set me off on my journey. And also just the people in Cambridge. It's like a revolving door of very interesting people. Not everyone sticks around for that long, but it's just a fascinating place on all levels, people, architecture, and my history. So yeah, Cambridge in the UK.
Emma, give us a glimpse into your life story so far with an emphasis on what you are doing currently.
Well, first off, I'm really glad you've asked about the story as opposed to a job title, because I don't have one of those, but I do have a story. I grew up in the UK, one of 5 girls. I have 4 sisters, and went off to university, did my undergrad in music and was really passionate about music, did some work for the Salvation Army, which was really a privilege. And that enabled me to enlarge my perspective on life quite significantly. Doing that work, I was working with rough sleepers in London, and I was also went out to Russia and travelled through Russia, which was an incredibly humbling experience. But when you experience life at quite a young age in quite extreme circumstances, it does shape how you perceive your future to be. I experienced a lot of loss in my teenage years and early 20s. Lots of people close to me lost their lives. And I do think that has also shaped my story, because it means I'm genuinely grateful for every day. And it means I've lived life really with this driver that life is short and nothing's a given, and I need to make the most of every day. And I'm grateful genuinely for every day. So I think that experience of grief that I had on multiple occasions in my teenage years and early 20s has shaped my desire to be purposeful, my desire to take risks, my desire to follow my curiosity and not to waste a single day. So I'm sure that's been part of the reason that I have a peculiar timeline of work life behind me. Peculiar but fun. I did a bit of teaching, love teaching, do not enjoy the routine of schools. I went on to do a lot of community work with music, running community choirs, helping people with their health and well-being around that. I do work in the corporate sector as well. I run a company called Solomon Hunt, and we do leadership training and development, bespoke design. And the other thing that I was doing through lockdown was finishing my book, actually, which is called What Does It Matter? And it's a phrase that my mum used a lot to really take the stress out of different situations, which it turned out I needed on many occasions. What Does It Matter? It's all about living with less stress and more joy. And I have thoroughly enjoyed putting it together. I just had this message that I wanted to get out there, because I was having the same conversation again and again and again with people who were feeling overwhelmed, who were feeling stressed, who honestly were making themselves unhappy trying to be happy. And so I've written a book exploring different elements of life and how we might be able to be content and find contentment and reduce our stress levels.
Where on earth is your place of reset or recharge?
So I was thinking about many places. I find it very easy to reset and recharge. Because I choose to do that in whatever circumstance I'm in. I've noticed I love extremes, so either incredibly busy cities like New York or wide open spaces like I've been to the desert in Abu Dhabi. But one thing that I find really refreshing is actually doing sport. And 2 things I love particularly are running and skiing. Unfortunately, just recently, I've had a medical diagnosis that means I'm not able to do those 2 things anymore. I ran the London Marathon in 2021. And it turns out I did the entire London Marathon on a broken leg and properly broken. We're not talking even a little bit broken. We're talking a fractured fibula. And it was quite serious. My leg was very cross with me for doing it. As a result of that, it turns out that I have a diagnosis that means I'm now not allowed to run anymore. I'm not allowed to ski anymore. So the sport element of my recharge and reset has just been taken off the table, which is a real challenge for me. So I'm exploring some new ways of resetting.
What wonder of the natural world excites you the most?
Well, this was easy because I get excited about the sunsets and sunrises. I mean, I properly get excited about it. And the reason I do is it reminds me there are planets moving and that I have nothing to do with. I mean, every day it's there again, and it's beautiful and it's different. And so the things I think that a sunset or sunrise gives me is really, I remember how beautiful it is. It reminds me to be grateful for another day. And it doesn't matter where in the world you are, it happens. You don't have to be in one location to experience it. It is everywhere at some point within that 24-hour cycle. So it's consistent, it's beautiful. It helps me get perspective that I am a tiny human on a big spinning planet, and that's okay. And that sense of perspective perspective really helps me. And it just gives me gratitude either as a day finishes or as a day starts. Even if I can't see the actual sunset itself, I see the effect of it in the change of daylight. So it's an easy one to access every single day. And it's something I really, really appreciate.
Emma, what is your story of hopefulness that's not your own, about a person, business or non-profit who are doing amazing things for the world?
I would love to draw your attention to Phil and Wendy Wall, who started a charity called We See Hope. They started this charity just over 20 years ago. And the way that they did it is really inspiring. Phil actually was in South Africa and working there with orphans. And there was one child in particular who caught his attention. He really wanted to adopt. He just felt for this little girl, and they tried to adopt her and were unable to. So in classic Phil and Wendy style, what they did was, rather than adopt the one, they said, right, well, we're going to adopt financially as many as we can. That launched the charity of We See Hope, which looks after orphaned and vulnerable children across South Africa. How they started the charity is one of the most inspiring things. They weren't people of wealth who decided to give out of what they had because they had so much. What they did was they actually took their entire life savings and gave it away in £10 notes to complete strangers. They had large gatherings. They were working for the Salvation Army at the time. And in those gatherings, they would give away a £10 note to each person and say, please make that £10 into £100 and send it back to us. In doing so, they have now raised millions for these children. They look after these orphans across sub-Saharan Africa and are continuing to do the work even now, all these years on. So they committed in that moment, back in, I think it was 2000 that the charity started, but they committed then to doing what they could do to look after orphaned and vulnerable children in sub-Saharan Africa. And they're still doing it now. And that seed capital they gave people did generate money, but it also was a great way of sharing the story, a great way of engaging people and getting ownership from people and embracing social entrepreneurship in a new way that hadn't been done quite to the extent that it has now. Back in the day, that was a revolutionary thing to do. So I loved their courage and their success in doing it.
And finally, as we prepare to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, what insight, wisdom or question would you like to leave with us?
Well, this has to be around the book of What Does It Matter? The reason the title is a question is because I would love everybody to be asking questions more. I believe there is a narrative that is a lot of telling going on. Do this, do that, and you'll be happy. And I actually think if we're not careful, we lose the power of stopping and asking. So What Does It Matter is a framework that can be used in everyday life to enable us to make decisions that we're pleased with and that reduce our stress and increase our joy. And so I've created a framework of WDIM. W, what is it that I'm feeling? D, define exactly why I'm feeling it, which is an interesting one because even if we're able to name our feelings, taking it another level of defining exactly why is really important. The third one is I, importance of that thing. So WDI, the importance or the real impact of that issue. And then M is to make a plan based on the importance. And so the WDIM, What Does It Matter framework, is there to enable us all, myself included, to respond proportionately to the importance of a situation, as opposed to just getting caught up in the overwhelm of the moment or getting caught up in the narrative that's being told to us. This is important. This, you should be doing this. You should be doing that. And actually, I just want to say to people, we're human. And humanity is messy and weird and lovely and vulnerable and strong and courageous. And we are human. And I think there is this drive at the moment to be pushing to be better, 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 be better this, be better that. And people are being told what to do. And what would it look like for us to stop and go, how can I be better human? How can I be better now? How can I be more content? Not better wealthy, better achieving, better. How can I be better at being content, better at finding peace? How can I be better at being kind to myself? And so, what does it matter really is about asking the right questions at the right time so that we end up living a life of one that we are really genuinely pleased with, as opposed to one where we may have some regrets.
To find out more about Emma and her book, What Does It Matter? Go to emmapears.com. In her story of hopefulness, Emma talks about the charity We See Hope, and their website is weseehope.org.uk. What is your story of hopefulness that's not your own, about a person, business or non-profit who are doing amazing things for the world? We would love you to consider recording yourself in under 30 seconds, sharing your story on your phone through your voice recorder app. You can then simply upload the recording to the link on our website, ourwonder.space. I want to thank Emma for joining us on Wonderspace. Let's continue to share our stories of hopefulness that makes a name for someone else. We need them like never before. Thanks for listening.